Hello, and welcome to the second episode of A Picture in 1,000 Words. Once again, my name is Michael Fiedler. Thank you for joining me. The title of today's post is Life is in the Rhythm. And this is sort of my life philosophy, and the image that you're seeing is pretty pervasive across my platforms. You're going to see it on my LinkedIn profile, my Facebook profile, it's on my website. And I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of explain this philosophy and how it applies to life and work. So let's start with the creation of the image itself. As I've done in my previous post, I want to talk a little bit about how I made this thing. So if you want to use some of those own skills with your own slide making, you can have some tips and tricks. So the first thing I want to say is that the two images in this picture, the clouded background and the infinity symbol, were both purchased off of 123RF, which is a great website for buying stock images. Shutterstock or iStock are going to charge you about $10 an image, whereas 123RF is going to charge you about $2 an image. And so when you're buying as many as I am these days, that's really a good deal. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is at the top of the screen, where you have that strip of more robust coloring rather than the sort of the faded. And the way that that's accomplished is that I took a single picture of that clouded image, made that the background, and then I overlaid a white translucent box over it. And what you can do there is you just put a box over your image and you set the transparency of somewhere between 10 and 30%. And this is a really effective tool if you want to overlay certain things without one sort of polluting the other. And so the way to get this effect where you have that strip almost look like somebody took a squeegee and cleared off some of that is to overlay a second copy of the picture, and you align it such that you use the arrange features, which are really powerful, and I really encourage you to explore those. But what you do is you do align left or align top or align middle, align center, and what that does is it gives you a really crisp overlay of those two images. And then all you do is you crop the second image, the one that's overlaid on top, to have that more robust coloring, and then it looks like it is. It's number one, it's perfectly matched with the image below it, but it also looks like it is that you get that sort of a removal of that transparency, which has a nice robust effect. Looking lower, what you see is the curvature of that text that's within the figure eight. Now that curvature effect is actually quite difficult to do, and it took me a long time to get this to look right, so don't take this lightly, but if you go into the format effects options, you can create these curved effects, but it's actually a little tricky, and it can take some time to get it right. Another thing that you'll notice is the listen and the learn are color matched for various portions of the figure eight, so I encourage once again to use color matching. It's a really nice way to have things look branded. I mean, that's essentially the tools that I used to make this particular image. So now let's go back to the philosophy. So life is in the rhythm. And those 5 words to me personally are very powerful because, oftentimes people will say things like, life is a journey, not a destination. And well, what does that mean, right? And how do you go from one experience to the next successfully, in my opinion, is to establish a certain rhythm. And the rhythm that I believe in has 4 stages, and those 4 stages are challenge, adaptation, solution, and insight. And they have 2 nodes, which are a listen node and a learn node. And what's interesting is of the 6 words that you're seeing here, the sort of the 6 concepts that you're seeing here, the 2 that are the most difficult are the listen and the learn part. Nowadays, listening for the sake of listening is one thing that people really don't like to do. We want to talk, we want to radiate, we want to communicate, but it's really hard for us to just shut up and absorb what's coming at us. And then learning. Sucks. Learning is so awful. It's such a terrible process because you have to break your boundaries, you have to get outside your comfort zone. It's really terrible. But if you really distill it down to just listening and learning, those are 2 things that we all can do. We can all listen and we can all learn. We had to go through school at some point. We all had to learn how to do something, whether it be riding a bike or driving a car or making a certain meal in the kitchen. So we can do those 2 things. And then there is the challenge, adaptation, solution, insight. Those actually maybe look a little more daunting, but in reality, it's just about using good listening and good learning. So when it comes to challenge, you're in this listen phase, and what you really need to do there is absorb. You really have to take in what your challenge is, whether it be I want to lose weight or I have a challenging project at work. You just have to listen to that challenge. You have to really absorb all its facets, because if you move right into trying to solve it, you may miss something, and then your solution's not going to work. The next phase is adaptation, and that's now entering the learning portion of the process. And what you have to do here is change. You have to organize yourself. You have to reimagine how you're thinking. You have to remove certain assumptions that don't apply, or you have to consider factors that maybe you don't want to. It's how you action that that absorption of the challenge. It's how you realize, okay, how am I going to solve this? How am I going to change in response to this problem that I'm facing? And then there is the solution, which is probably what seems like the most difficult part. But actually, if you adapt to your challenge, which means that you have absorbed your challenge, you have appreciated it in its totality, and you have successfully adapted yourself, whether it be organizing, skill acquiring, information finding, the solutions can actually come quite naturally. And that's actually the discover phase. And what I find when it comes to solutions is that I discover them. And once I see them, it almost seems so simple. It's like the clouds have lifted and there's a parting in the sky, not unlike what you're looking at. And boom, the solution is right there in front of me. So then you have this solution, and oftentimes solutions aren't necessarily perfect in and of themselves. They're just what we think is going to work. So you have to challenge it. You have to test it, and that's where the insight phase comes in. You toss this solution out into the world, and you see what happens. And sometimes that solution is going to hit the mark perfectly, and sometimes it's not. But either way, that insight, that realization of what will or will not work is going to create a new challenge. It's going to be, oh, that was great, now we want to do something better. Or that wasn't so great, and now you got to do it better. And then you start the whole process over again. And you get the challenge, the adaptation, the solution, the insight. The challenge, the adaptation, the solution, the insight. And that rhythm is what life is all about. And if you're lucky, this symbol will go on and on and on and on until you're 90-something years old. And that is what living life is all about. It's all about establishing a rhythm. And if all of these functions operate in harmony, you will have success. And so the reason why I wanted to outlay this particular philosophy is that's what I'm offering as a personal consultant, whether it be in the strategic communications realm, whether it be in the medical affairs realm, whether it be in the personal optimization. I'm offering energy and creative solutions, and this is my general strategy. I'm either going to do it for you by looking at your circumstances and seeing what I can come up with, or I'm going to teach you how to do this yourself, because if you can do this yourself, then you can tackle anything on your own. So by and large, this is what I'm going for. This is my life strategy. This is how I approach parenting. It's how I approach career searches. It's how I approach job creation. It's how I approach relationship building. Life is in the rhythm. Those are my 5 words to live by. And I hope you enjoyed this episode.